This film's about two very different kinds of animal which you find in and around gardens: spiders and birds. Let's start by looking at a few of the common birds which we saw when we were making these films. You can see magpies in town parks as well as in farm fields like this. They're a kind of crow. They're easily spotted by their black and white plumage and their long tails. Handsome birds with nasty habits. They eat the eggs of other smaller birds. You can see quite a few water birds in cities and suburbs. Moor hens live on stretches of water where there's some cover to retreat into. This one's only 100 yards from shops and houses and a main road. Birds of the tit family live in woodland. This is a blue tit. Tits come into gardens, especially in hard weather, if you put out the right food for them. Here's a great tit. You see how he's clinging on? All tits feed like this. The song thrush visits most gardens. It's a very common bird. See the spots on its breast. Here's another kind of thrush, a blackbird. You can see this almost anywhere. This is the male, the cock blackbird, with a fine black shiny plumage and a lovely orange-yellow bill. Here's his mate, the hen blackbird. She's browner, not quite so handsome. The robin's a very familiar bird, but we'll find out more about him another time. Starlings are everywhere. They often feed in huge flocks, and many of them sleep on ledges on buildings in the middle of big cities. And you can see house sparrows wherever there are people and buildings. Now that's just a small selection. There are birds of all shapes and sizes. They're all vertebrates, animals with backbones like us, but they're winged vertebrates. They can fly. They can fly great distances when they migrate from one part of the world to another. They fly to find a mate and a place to live. They fly in search of food. And very important, they can fly to escape from their enemies. They don't always escape. We found this dead hen house sparrow in one of the gardens. A shame, but it gave us the chance to take a close look at a bird. Its head and body are covered by feathers. Some of these are called contour feathers. They form a sort of stiff outer coat which gives each kind of bird its own special appearance. There are the larger flight feathers. These are the ones which form the wing. Here's the underside. See how the separate feathers are hooked together? The tail, well, that's used for steering and balancing. See how the feathers overlap like slates on a roof? This helps keep the bird dry in wet weather. Next to the skin, like underclothes, there are small feathers, the down. You can see how thick this layer is. It helps to keep the bird warm, very important for such small, active, airborne creatures. And there's the skin underneath. The claws. The house sparrow is a perching bird, and you can see how the claws are adapted for perching on a branch or twig, 3 toes in front, 1 behind. The beak. House sparrows are seed-eating birds, and they have these thick, strong bills for cracking open seed. Each different kind of bird is adapted to the kind of life it leads. This is a dunnock. They're sometimes called hedge sparrows, but they're not sparrows at all. They don't have those thick beaks, they have the sharper, pointed beaks for getting at insects. They're not as common in town gardens as house sparrows, but they'll come to bird tables for food in bad weather. Look at this moorhen's bill. It's broad and flat for dabbling in water and mud to get the water weeds and so on which it feeds. But someone's thrown this one a piece of bread. The tawny owl, which you can often hear hooting at night, even near towns, is a bird of prey. It has a sharp, hooked beak to deal with the mice and so on which it eats. And notice how its feathers give it a streaky look so that it blends with its background. It's nicely camouflaged so that you can't easily see it when it's resting by day. It's still there in the middle of the picture near the top. Can you make it out? Many birds are coloured for camouflage like this. But coloured feathers can be used for just the opposite, to attract attention. These are mallard in a park. That's the duck, the female, on the left. She's very drab compared with the drake on the right. In the breeding season, he's brightly coloured to attract a mate. Colour can be used to warn off rivals, like the bright red patch on the robin's breast. He's a very pugnacious little bird. And, of course, birds sing. They sing to attract a mate. Often they sing to warn off rivals or enemies. This blackbird is proclaiming that the garden's part of his territory, his feeding ground. He goes to one of his other frontier posts. Many birds do this. It's called territorial song. So you see, birds don't sing to please us. And here's a blackbird's nest and eggs. All birds hatch their young from eggs and look after them until they can fend for themselves. These are young willow warblers not many days old. They hear a parent bird returning with food and they get ready to swallow. But she's a bit cautious. She perches for a moment to make sure the coast is clear. Do you see, by the way, the insects in her beak? Now down she goes with it, and those nestlings are very hungry. Now, you're not likely to find birds nesting successfully in every garden. Birds visit gardens to get food, but they don't usually live in small gardens. But there are nests of a very different kind in all gardens. They belong to a very different kind of creature. A creature like this. A spider. There are lots of different spiders, just as there are many different insects. But spiders aren't insects. Insects have 6 legs, spiders have 8. Insects have 3 parts of their bodies: the head, the thorax, the abdomen. Spiders have only 2 parts. They have an abdomen, that's the big bulgy part of this spider's body. Then the head and thorax come as one piece, called the cephalothorax. You can see the cephalothorax of this spider, the smaller bit of the body, at the top. And spiders can produce a special sort of silk. They use this in different ways. Here's one way. The spider's paying out a sort of lifeline made of its silk so that it can drop to safety if danger threatens. Here's another kind of spider showing how it uses its lifeline. Now, here's another use for spider silk. That cotton wool ball at the top right is a silken cocoon. Female spiders lay their eggs after mating, then wrap them up in silk like this. These are spiders' nests. See how firmly this one's fixed to the wall? Do you see the tiny whitish spider's eggs inside? Spiders' cocoons needn't be indoors. Here's a spider just finishing her cocoon under the leaf of a rhododendron bush. Here's the tiny cocoon of a different spider under a rose leaf. This one's a beautiful shape. And there's the spider who made it. Some spiders carry their cocoons around stuck to their abdomen like this hunting spider. Do you see the big swollen bit at the back? It's simply a silken bag full of the spider's eggs. You can find these spiders' cocoons around your house and garden if you look carefully. When the young spiders hatch from the eggs, they start to feed and they grow. Now, spiders are like insects in one respect. They're invertebrates. Their skeletons are on the outside. So if they're to grow, they have to shed their tough outer skeleton or skin periodically. Here's a spider moult. It's just above the middle of the picture there. A complete outer skin which a spider has just shed. This is the freshly molted spider, and you can see how fresh and clean it looks. All spiders do this. They never go through a metamorphosis, larva, pupa, adult, like many insects. But we've still not mentioned another use for that silk, and this is the one most people think of when they think of spiders. Spiders' webs. Many spiders make webs or snares to trap insects for their food, and there are different sorts of webs. Here's yet another use for silk, wrapping up the insect which the spiders just attacked. We'll take a closer look at these different types of web in other films. But some kinds of spider don't make webs. These are hunting spiders, wolf spiders, which chase after their prey. The tiny little zebra spider, you often find it on house walls, jumps on its victims. Crab spiders simply lie in wait for insects, then seize them in their jaws. This one's called a small moth. But web or no web, all spiders are carnivorous. They feed on other small creatures, biting them, injecting poison, then digesting the softer portions. Like nearly all animals, spiders reproduce sexually, the male fertilizing the female's eggs with his sperm. There are fascinating courtship activities between the pair before they mate. Here are two garden spiders, the male's on the right, and he's signaling to the female by vibrating the silk line from which they're both hanging. Spiders which don't have webs, like these wolf spiders, go about it differently. The male at the top is signaling to the female by waving his palps. He's carrying his sperm on these palps, and when he mates, he will thrust them into the female's genital organ and so fertilize her eggs. Different spiders court in different ways, but they all mate in this way. Spiders are beautiful creatures in their own way. Without them, things would be very different, because they destroy such enormous numbers of insects. Like insects and plants and birds, spiders have their place in the world, just as we have.